7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Meeting has been noticed to the Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and the Sparta Free Library. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Presswood, a second from Mr. Lukasik to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item, public input. We have quite a list again tonight. Remember, just as a reminder, you have 2 minutes to speak. I will have a little, I'll be timing you as you're going. I'll give you a 30-second hand raise when your time is, when you have 30 seconds left, so you can get anything that you really want out there at that time. Keep the comments respectful. While other people are speaking, please be quiet so that board members and the crowd can hear what they're saying. So we will go in order from what they were received. First individual is Scott Wegner, which I was told he was not going to be here.
Yeah, I don't think he can make it tonight.
All right. Next individual, Michelle Thacker.
Hello, members. Today I'm just going to state a couple of basic, obvious information about wearing masks. Size matters. Evidently, a lot, because pathogens come in different sizes. A belief you may have is that wearing a mask protects others around you because it keeps most of the particles in when you cough or sneeze. That's very commendable, but it turns out that when you do cough or sneeze, particles take the path of least resistance. This means that, depending on the type of face mask, pathogens can travel right through the material or find an exit of the sides of the mask, such as here or here. Another belief you may have is that having a mask over your face will filter out most viral particles, which reduces the number of viral cells entering your body, and maybe you won't get as sick. Can you show us any true evidence of this? I've searched the Monroe County Health Department website. There is no mention or proof of either. Your mask is also a breeding ground for bacteria. Pathogens can rapidly accumulate in them. When this happens, it can actually increase the risk of spreading virus to others. All of the above cause serious and obvious doubts about the effectiveness of masks to protect against COVID-19. It is irrational to say that we need to mask our children through their most critical and developmental years. Those are draconian measures. So where is the justification? How is this the best interest of our children? How is it helping the vulnerable? It is unfathomable that such basic truths can be manipulated and confused by adults, especially by medical professionals, which then leads me to wonder, is there an ulterior motive?
Next individual, Cecilia Kirkland.
A school board member holds a leadership role. General John A. Lejeune gave a fine definition of what leadership means: the sum of those qualities of intellect, human understanding, and moral character that enable a person to inspire and to control a group of people successfully. Unfortunately, there has been some lack of leadership on the school board. You are an elected official who represents the community of the Sparta School District. You are appointed to serve and are accountable for improving the quality of education for all of our children. By enforcing mask mandate, children are restricted, forced to conform, and have difficulties engaging in their studies. Mrs. Skohorsky made a comment on the Monroe County Health Department social media page. Quote, "Always love that the trolls cannot resist even in the face of death." Does this exemplify the position you hold? A leader is to carry traits of judgment, discipline, and unselfishness, just to name a few. The ability to look, talk, and act like a leader should not be affected by personal feelings and emotions. You have demonstrated your inability to be professional and tactfully proficient.
You're not allowed to attack members of the board or the public.
At the last school board meeting, parents' outcries went unheard. You must know your audience and look out for their welfare. This is one of the most important leadership principles. A leader must conscientiously make a conscious effort to observe the people's needs, put the majority of the community's desires at the forefront of the decisions. I respect that you take the time to hold a voluntary position for the best interest of our children. Remember, you represent our wishes as well. Fulfill your role as a leader and hear our voice and listen to our words, no mask mandate.
Next individual.
Me? Kristen Gust.
My kid has a reputation of crying really inappropriate times, so I apologize. It's kind of getting close to bath and bedtime, so. Anyway, thank you guys for letting me speak today. I'm not going to stand here and spout off COVID-19 facts and figures or quote any scholarly articles or medical journals, because you know what? I'm not a doctor. I never have been. I never will be. I faint at the sight of blood, okay? So let's just make that real clear. But what I am is a business owner and a community leader who has a direct lifeline to the pulse of this community. And I'm here tonight to talk to you as humans, as people, as friends, as fellow city council people. And please just listen to the people in this audience. I want to make it clear that my stance on this pandemic has never changed since day one. I've always said that if people want to sit at home and quarantine, they're more than welcome to do so. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. People can never leave their house again, as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing wrong with that. And if people want to wear masks, they're more than welcome to do so. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. They can wear a mask for the rest of their lives, as far as I'm concerned. But because I feel that people should be able to take their own personal precautions based on their own comfort level, I believe you should allow families that opportunity as well. I feel that some people made their decision on the comfort level at the height of their fear during this pandemic, and now they're just unable to come back down to reality and look at the facts and figures. There's an entire unmasked world out there that continues to turn. There are sporting events, there's award shows, there are large weddings, prom, there are concerts. A sense of normalcy has returned. Why can't our kids have the same? You as individuals can have your concerns, have your fears, and that's totally fine, but do not project those individual fears on our students. Yes, Josh Layden.
No, that's your 30-second time.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I was
I'll give you a few more
yeah, sir,
seconds.
you have a question. Oh, I'm sorry. I know. Okay. Do I get like 15 more seconds?
I'll give you some time.
Okay, so let students and parents make their own decisions and take their own precautions based on their own comfort level. I know the health department issues recommendations on this topic, and there are hundreds of other health recommendations that have been around a lot longer than the one for masks. And I can guarantee people aren't following them, and that you as a school board aren't enforcing them. Like eating 5 to 9 servings of vegetables each day, getting 30 minutes of exercise, walking 10,000 steps, brushing your teeth for 2 minutes twice a day, flossing daily, drinking 8-ounce glasses of water, not using tobacco products, not having more than 3 to 4 alcoholic beverages at one sitting, getting 7 hours of sleep a night. Well, that clearly doesn't happen. But those are all health recommendations, okay? We don't follow those. We don't have to. They're not mandates. Look, we're all human. We're trying to live as healthy as we can. We try to follow these recommendations. We don't. We just simply don't. And I'm asking why masking is any different, okay? How long are we going to keep doing this? It's been a year and a half. It's going to be another year and a half, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 30, indefinite? We're just going to keep wearing masks for the rest of our lives? That's ridiculous. You have to understand that. So what's the end game? At what point do you stop projecting your own fears onto these students? I believe you should be empowering students and allowing them and their families to make decisions, and stop making educators be enforcers. That's not their job. Their jobs are hard enough already. COVID-19 exists. It's going to continue to exist. Whether it's Alpha, the Delta, the MU, the XYZ variant, it's going to be here. It's not going away. So thank you for letting me speak tonight. I would really recommend that you vote in favor of a mask optional to empower our students and let our teachers return to teaching. Thank you.
Next individual, Joyce Emery.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Board of Education is now deciding on a health policy that will impact health and safety of students and staff, and ultimately the entire community. In my many years of experience as a registered nurse, I know healthcare organizations make health and safety policy decisions by relying on guidance of experts at CDC, FDA, and other federal agencies. Political expediency does not factor into patient health and safety policy making. CDC states universal masking in schools significantly lowers rates of COVID-19 and the number of quarantines. Since board members are not public health experts, it is incumbent upon you to follow recommended policy guidance on universal masking and quarantining set out by CDC, DPI, and Wisconsin Department of Health to keep all students and staff safe. When established health and safety policies are not followed in healthcare settings, bad things can happen, including death, which can lead to litigation, among other things. Crafting health and safety policy for the district based on politics and ignoring the experts is dangerous and irresponsible. I'm here to advocate for the voiceless members of our community, the kindergartner with a congenital heart defect, the child with Down syndrome, my neighbor undergoing chemo, the person with asthma, and the elderly in this community. I am here to advocate for my fellow medical colleagues who need the help of the community and policymakers to keep ICU and hospital beds open and ventilators available for the ill. I am here to advocate for a school health policy that helps keep COVID-related medical costs down. Lastly, I'm here to advocate for universal masking and quarantine policy based on expert guidance to keep all children and staff safe and in school. Masking policies and quarantine policies not in line with best practices will not keep our communities safe. Safe, responsible, informed decision-making based on recommendations of public health experts is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next individual, Josh Nichols.
When I am forced to make a hard decision in life, I like to make that decision based on fact, not emotion. I would guess we have all made decisions that were more about anger, fear, loneliness, or disgust. I too have made decisions this way, and they haven't been my proudest moments. It is a fact that Monroe County has 46,274 residents. It is a fact that Monroe County has 25.2% ages 0 to 18, or 11,569 residents. It is a fact that in the state of Wisconsin's 127,703 positive cases of COVID-19 in the Delta variant, in children under ages of 18, 3 have died. Each one of those 3 cases has been a tragedy. Every time we lose a life before it has been given an opportunity to see what that child could have become, it pulls at our heartstrings. Alex Hernandez, Danny Reese, Dylan Pesa are not statistics. They were children that were taken from us too soon. Does the rarity of these occurrences make them more noticeable? It is a fact that of the 771 students in the Sparta School District has quarantined in the last 2 years, 75 have tested positive for the disease. Since it statistically takes 42,500 positive cases to equal 1 death and 10 quarantines to equal 1 positive test, it is also then fact we need to quarantine 425,000 of our 11,500 kids. Yeah, that's right. We would need to quarantine every child in Monroe County 36.5 times to reach the statistical probability of 1 death at the current quarantine rate. That would take 551 years. Is the decision to enforce our quarantine and contact tracing based on fact or emotion? Thank you.
Next individual, Bryant Neville.
Let me start with something I often have to say to my 4-year-old. Are you ready to listen? Do you have your ears turned on? Let me see you turn them on real quick, all of you. Because at that last meeting, majority of you were not listening to us. The decision to mandate face coverings was made well before that last meeting was even held. It was surely no surprise the 4 wearing masks voted to mandate. What was surprising was how you could sit there and totally ignore what members of this community were saying. Well, I have news for you. We will not be ignored. Let me remind you that you do not work for the superintendent. The superintendent works for you, and you work for the members of this community. When decisions are made and the public is completely ignored, that's when change needs to happen. Can any of you please explain to me how we can pack our gymnasiums and football stadiums full with no mask or distancing, but then require our kids during school day to be socially distanced and wear a mask? Green Bay can pack 70,000 people into a stadium to watch a game, but we can't have 20 to 30 students in the same classroom without a mask on? When does common sense become part of this equation? It's truly amazing how these guidelines and mandates get made up along the way to meet the narrative. It's time we put an end to that and start looking at what other local communities are doing, and even some of the private schools within our own district. We're done letting the Monroe County Health Department and our superintendent be the judge, jury, and executioner for our children. It's time to start putting the decision-making back in the parents' hands where it belongs. Go back to optional masking and put an end to sending healthy children home on quarantine. This board needs to start making its own decisions. Work on its own solutions, our own set of standards, our own guidelines. Enough with the mandates. We are sick of it. If you're not ready to make some changes, then we will.
Next individual, Nancy Krug.
Nancy Krug.
Mr. President and members of the board, thank you for taking time to listen to us. I graduated Sparta High School in 1975. I am here now to speak in support of safety protocols for school children and staff during a pandemic. Policies the board must undertake are difficult. The crowd in this room does not represent the majority at home, the silent majority. I have 3 points I'd like to make. First, COVID-19 is a disease. It's not a political issue. It kills children.
Quiet.
I'd like to have my time back, please.
Yep.
I have 3 points that I would like to make. First, COVID-19 is a disease. It is not a political issue. It kills children. It kills adults, Republicans and Democrats alike. There is no cure for COVID-19. It doesn't kill everybody, but the board has the responsibility to protect both children and staff, all of them. Second, facts are not determined by popularity, by political party, by those who talk the loudest or have the most likes on Facebook. We, the majority, are not epidemiologists, and we don't do our own research. The CDC, the medical professionals, and the public health professionals provide facts. Respectfully, the school board should not develop its own quarantine and mask policies over the subject matter experts who know the detailed data and the facts. Third, political slogans about personal freedom fail to take the sophisticated balance that you on the board will need to take. The right to life, Liberty and pursuit of happiness includes first the right to life. We cannot be free if we are sick or dead. The rights of one child cannot jeopardize the life of another child. So the choice is unpleasant but clear. Mandatory masks, social distancing, and quarantines have to continue a while longer. Thank you.
Next individual, Leah Smith.
Thank you, board members, Superintendent Van Deuren, for allowing me the time and space to speak tonight, specifically in regards to Board Policy Article 904. The Spartan way, adopted in 2014 for Sparta, not Bangor, not Toma. Respectful, responsible, safe. Thank you for thinking of this when the policy was reinstated. Thank you for thinking of our students and their families. And beyond that, our neighbors we trust to teach in and clean our classrooms, the ones we trust to feed and guide our children. Thank you for thinking about the health of Sparta residents, including my own child who cannot yet be vaccinated against this virus. If there is high community spread and low community vaccination, we're going to struggle with this a lot longer than we need to. A board member, now the subject of a recall that could be diverting resources from actual issues the city is facing, said these words no more than 3 weeks ago. Our county has been in constant high transmission level of this deadly virus since August 4th. As of yesterday, and according to the state's Department of Health Services, 42.2% of our county's total population has completed the vaccine series. Jefferson County, where Fort Atkinson is, 48.7. Buffalo County, where Mondovi is, 53.2. Again, our county's is 42.2%. With this low percentage of vaccinated folks, we need to do all we can to mitigate the risk for all, but especially our most vulnerable. And one proven way is masks. This, to maximize health and safety. If wearing a mask can save one child, save one family from heartbreak, it will have been worth it. So at the very least, we will have known we did all we could and not just stood idly by. Indeed, it would have been worth it. Thank you.
Next individual, Lisa Gonke.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. As a professional in the Sparta Area School District, I thank the members of the school board for following Monroe County Health Department and CDC guidelines to inform them of best mitigation practices at this time. I am one of the over 75% of staff that answered yes to the masking mandate survey put out by school administration. Having worked through virtual and in-person school during the previous school year and our current year, I have experienced working with kids masked. Last year, I stepped out of my usual role as a para in the special ed department to fill a position working as an aide to a teacher in pre-K. The teacher I worked with came up with a very creative way to teach while masked when we were in person. We both video recorded ourselves giving instructions for projects and reading to the kids. The students would actually pay better attention to us on the screen. They could see us and hear us better, and we could essentially be in two places at once. It wasn't something we did every day, but we found it useful, and it's something we can carry forward in other years. I work with teachers now who use a modified shield. They're a combination mask and shield, and their students can see their expressions and hear them better too. Children watch us and learn from us all the time. Are we teaching them positive ways to look outside the box and find creative solutions? If we make a huge deal out of masks, the kids get upset about them too. We're not doing them any favors by doing that. We, as educators, are doing our usual job of teaching academics and social skills. Learning is our focus. Masks are part of our school day, but we don't focus on them. It's often like forgetting you're wearing glasses. you forget the mask. They're not a hardship if we don't make them be one. Thank you again.
Next individual, Tucker Bills.
Tucker Bills. Nope. Next individual, Brittany Fleury.
Good evening. Tonight, I would like to request that you please consider making masks optional. Our children do not benefit from wearing masks while trying to learn. Not only have the masks themselves been proven that they do not work, but they are also creating difficulties academically. The effective and proper thing to do would be to post public signage around the district that says the Sparta Area School District follows the recommendations of the CDC and requests that you wear a mask. And then if anybody wants to stay home or is fearful, they have that choice. Let's also talk about this term, long COVID. I'm curious to know what this term means and where it came from. I personally had a conversation with my own doctor a couple weeks ago, and she stated, a doctor, that long COVID is not a thing, that there's no long-term effects.
Quiet, please.
The virus is just that. It comes in contact with you, you get the sickness, the symptoms, and then it passes, just like a common cold, flu, pneumonia, etc. We need to stop treating this like it's a certain death plague and reassure our children that the air is not toxic. I also want to bring up the latest term being used by select community members, anti-maskers. I think I can speak for myself and many others that we are not anti-mask. We just choose not to wear one because there's no law stating that we have to. It's a choice. You can wear one if you choose to, same as us. Please respect that. Thanks.
Next individual, Ryan Oswald.
I spoke to you guys before the first time that we had a meeting on this regarding masks, explained that the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled to our governor saying that it was illegal to require masks. I guess I don't see how you guys feel that you have higher rule than them. Our U.S. Constitution, I strongly support it and believe in it 100%. The Fourth Amendment right actually says that people should be secure in their persons unless there's probable cause or a warrant or something that says otherwise, and I don't see that anywhere. I also spoke about looking at this as a scientific method where everybody that I hear, and this is for everybody, if you support masks, that nobody's comparing wearing masks to people who don't compare masks. I compared it before when I came up here talking about Atoma Elementary School and the Sparta Elementary School and how Sparta requiring masks had higher numbers. Now, since we required masks in Sparta, Toma, who has optional masking, has lower COVID count with approximately the same population than what Sparta has. Weeks after enforcing this mandate, COVID rates have went higher. What does common sense tell you about that? So another thing that you're all proving my point, anybody speaking saying that masks you want to protect your children, thank you, because you're going to prove my next point here. Yes, do doctors wear masks to try to help protect against germs? Yes. But what do doctors do? What do surgeons do? They put on a clean, brand new mask after wearing gloves, after soaping up, they put it on their face. And then if they take it off, guess what? They're putting on a brand new mask. Does a surgeon open up somebody's insides, start digging in their guts all bloody, and then touch their masks, take it off, and then put blood all over their face and mask again? No, but that's all what you are doing right now with all the germs on your hands and putting on the same mask. The children in school, I've heard people, they're coming home with different masks. They're touching objects after touching
Your 2 minutes,
things.
Mr. Oswald. Thank
Okay.
you.
I would just appreciate that you guys put up another vote. If you want to recommend it, that's fine. I just would appreciate it that you guys use common sense and look at what's going on in the community.
Next
Thank you.
individual.
Next individual, Michael Bonello.
Good evening. I come to you again with a Spartan Way request. My name is Michael Bonello, resident of Sparta here. I have a master's degree in healthcare and 40 years experience with 37 years administering the care of the elderly, 17 of those at Morrow Home Community, where I retired 4 years ago. I'm here to advocate for masks in the Sparta School District for children under 12. Children who currently have no access to COVID-19 vaccination, but because of science, may soon have a vaccination. I have a petition to the Sparta School Board titled Follow CDC Mask Guidelines in Sparta Schools for Children Under 12, signed by almost 350 individuals. I do not have time to read the petition, but I have copies of the petition for the Sparta School Board. Monroe County today is 3 times the high red rate. The Sparta Area School District has a wonderful philosophy promoted and applied for the past 5 or 6 years titled The Spartan Way, with the highlighted characteristics of respectful, responsible, and safe. I've seen this banner over Water Street, on school electronic billboards, on the Sparta area website, and today I saw it on a school van. And it's also right there. I believe the Sparta Way applies to all our school district, teachers, students, parents, and other school employees, our community administration, and the school board. So I ask the school board, do you believe and follow the Spartan Way? Are you respectful of your students and staff? Are you respectful of the students' parents? Those who agree with masks and those who do not? Are you respectful of science? Remember, science does not compromise. Science wins. Sparta School Board, are you responsible to the students and staff, parents in the Sparta community? But more importantly, Sparta School Board, are you being safe? I operated for almost 40 years serving the elderly, many of those who were disabled and sick. Every time I had a decision to make, I asked my staff, what is best for those we serve?
Thank you, Mr.
Or as
Pinello.
my Christian faith compels me to ask, what would Jesus do? Sparta School Board, what is best for those you serve?
Mr. Bonello, your time has expired.
By your vote on this on September 8th, your answer is yes. You are doing what is best for those you serve.
Next
Thank you.
individual.
Next individual is Kelly Anderson.
Kelly Anderson. First off here, just a couple of comments to a couple of our board members here. If one child ends up in ICU with or without mask mandate, if you think for one moment that I won't, if anybody else in this room here won't, use every tool afforded by me, by us, with the law to hold you personally responsible, you are sadly mistaken. A few weeks ago, I listened to a commenter claim that coronavirus is too small to be caught by a face mask. Coronavirus itself is extremely small, measuring in nanometers. However, the medical community knows that coronavirus mode of transportation is through respiratory droplets that find their way airborne through a cough, a sneeze, talking, or just sitting here breathing. One respiratory droplet, 90 micrometers, which could be airborne for several minutes, could hold 4,500 individual coronaviruses. Many of these droplets can be caught with nothing more than a face mask made from a bed sheet, and I'm going to prove it. One cough has a pressure behind it of about 1.8 psi. This portable washer sprayer here delivers pressures up to 130.5 psi. That's 72 times more pressure than behind a cough. Most face masks are designed with 2 layers of fabric. Keeping my demonstration apples to apples, I would need 145 layers of that fabric as my mocked up face mask.
Stop.
The mask debate is done. It's done.
That is not acceptable. You are not acceptable. You sprayed above the sheet. You knew what you were doing.
We will not be intimidated by you. The medical community will not be intimidated by you. That board will not be intimidated by you. That was my point. That was my point.
It wasn't through the sheet. You'll figure it out. I took a shower. Figure it out. Are you saying that you put something else in the water? Oh, yeah. No, water that. So we're going to figure it out. Yeah. Is that correct, sir? Yeah. I know you got me and you got it really good. We got covered.
Well, okay.
Is that what's that supposed to be?
We have reached the 30 minutes for public input. At this point, we would need a motion and a second and a vote to extend public input. Do I have a motion to do so?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Mr. Lukasik, a second from Ms. Presswood to extend public input. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next individual, Martha Jo Esterline.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm also known to many people as Joey Esterline. So thank you. First, I'd like to express my support and my appreciation to the members of the school board for their decision to mandate these masks for all students and staff. A decision made using science-based knowledge and input from medical and healthcare professionals. A decision I feel was made with compassion and commitment by the leaders who care about their students, their staff, their families, and our community. What I do hope Two is that the school board members who did not vote for the mask mandate will stand with the majority vote and back the decision wholeheartedly. I have a vested interest in this decision because I have two grandchildren under the age of 12 who have not been vaccinated. Children's lives matter, folks, and no one should stand in the way of a sensible decision that saves lives. There's no denying that masks do make a difference in the spread of COVID. No one wants to wear a mask, but the sooner we make the effort to mask and vaccinate, the sooner this is over. Too often I hear the opposition using spin words such as draconian, mistrust, and don't tread on me, to name a few. Words to put doubt and fear into people's minds about losing their liberties and rights. And we continually hear conspiracies that defy all reasoning. What is this doing? It's dividing the community, hurting families, hurting people who have gone out of their way to serve the community for the better good. A well-respected doctor who has served this community for a number of years in the county health department were both publicly challenged with mistrust. Because the decision you oppose is not made in your favor does not mean you are not heard. Many families cannot afford to have a child sick with COVID. The cost of a doctor visit or time off can easily impact a person on limited income. Do we want to return to virtual learning? A huge detriment to our children's learning, social being, and to families wanting to maintain a normal life. In finishing, I ask you, is love an act of conspiracy? I don't think so. Love is what needs to spread, not this virus. People protect what they love. Thank you.
Thank you. Next individual, Misty Morales.
Someone left their sheet up here. Hello, my name is Misty. I'm a mom of 2 students who attend the Sparta Area School District. I'd like to go over a couple things. Our family does not agree with the mask mandate. We believe that it causes more harm than good, both mentally and medically. Why are others' health concerns being heard, but not ours? I'm not saying that others should not be allowed to wear a mask. I'm stating that all should be allowed to make their own medical decisions. We see people out and about on a daily basis that don't wear a mask. Some at work, some at church, and some at local stores. Masks are optional at most of these locations. So why are we targeting just schools? COVID does not know time, nor does it have a navigation system. So again, why only schools? Lastly, I'd like to bring up the contact tracing and why I believe it's not working. Today, our daughter was told she needed to sit in the back of the classroom. She was the only student in that class not wearing a mask. This was at the beginning of the class, so it was not due to chatter with friends. I went to the school and spoke with the principal over my concerns of her being segregated from the rest of the class. When he pulled up the seating chart with the faces, and I was not able to see those faces due to privacy. My daughter stated that she has not sat at that seat since the first part of school. Today would have been move number 2 for her, which means they have not updated their seating charts from the beginning of school. How many times and how many students have been quarantined due to incorrect seating charts? Also, how many students are being pointed out and segregated because of their freedom to choose not to wear a mask? The school board has pushed to see how far their limits can go, and this mama is not having it. I'm starting to push back. Thank you.
Next individual, Erica McKnight.
Hello, thank you for giving me the time to speak. I'm up here because I'm a COVID case manager, and my job is to handle K-12 notifications 7 days a week. No, I don't work for the health department in Sparta, but I'm here to warn you. You think that your children are safe because you're a smaller population, but you don't stop to think about how often children touch their faces and touch one another, hug each other, go home, touch grandma. My mother has MS. I had to get her vaccinated. Guess what happened? Her unvaccinated granddaughter got sick, and we had to immediately quarantine my mother. If you stop and think about all of the people that are impacted besides just you as the adult who is safe, then you can see the number that I deal with daily of children who are positive, not just contacts, positive, who are sick, who are getting grandmothers and grandfathers and sick siblings who have very serious health conditions. We have to stop thinking about, oh, I'm good because I'm an adult. I'm healthier. I'm good to go. The kids are great. How do you know? A lot of kids can't convey what they're feeling when they're sick. Sometimes it might be like, oh, I got butterflies, but they don't know how to explain. They're sweating all night long. They're hurting. They have this headache that doesn't make any sense. And people keep throwing out facts when they don't know the facts. They're not health professionals. We deal with these children, and some of these children are developing neurological disorders because of COVID. Some already had pre-existing conditions and some didn't. Isn't it more important to protect those children just in case instead of worrying about our freedom to breathe air? You can breathe air. You can breathe, I'm speaking, you can breathe air. Your children need to be protected because they are valuable and an important thing in your life. You don't want to wear a mask? Fine. Protect your babies. It's important.
Individual.
Guys, quiet, please. Next individual, Melissa Brooks.
I have
You need to set it on the right there.
Thank you. So that's a copy of part of an email from the superintendent, as well as a few of the policies. On September 17th, the superintendent sent out an email to the staff of Sparta Area School District, requiring them to wear face masks or face coverings while on outdoor duty for pickup and drop off. She went on to indicate that this was to model the behavior we expect of students and cited Board Policy Article 302 for her authority over this new rule. Second page is those 3 articles I'm going to refer to. Article 302 reads, the employee shall be subject to such rules and regulations as are included in handbooks, job specification guides, and directives of the administrative staff. Such rules and regulations are subject to the review of the Board of Education. In her email to the staff, the superintendent stated, while Policy 904 does not specifically address staff responsibilities regarding face coverings, and then goes on to require face masks of staff while doing outdoor duty. However, this policy does specifically address staff and face coverings. Article 904, which is on the second page, shows that all staff and students 5 years of age or older are required to wear a face covering when they are at school anytime they are indoors. I know that that policy is on your guys' agenda tonight. Maybe this is what it's about. The new rule, this new rule that the superintendent has issued, as Article 302 states, is subject to board approval and is in direct conflict with Article 907's delegation of authority, which states that the board retains authority for requiring masking. I'm asking you to address this new rule that does not align with the current policies in place. As a board, this is your jurisdiction and your authority. Thank you.
Next individual, Mandy Kimple.
So I didn't write like some fancy speech or anything. I'm here because I think that we all should have our choice for masking. Last year, when the masks came out, I had my daughter do virtual. We tried virtual for all year long. It didn't work out. So this year I had to send her to school. She's repeating kindergarten. She missed out on a whole year of school because of these masks. So I think it's going to be all good sending her to school, Then all of a sudden we got masks again. She was fine the first week of school. Guess what happens? As soon as she starts wearing a mask, she comes home from school with a really bad cold. But imagine that, to my surprise, they're not sending her home from school because there's no fever. So there's still colds going around. I think that it's only fair now to let us have choice. If you're afraid to send your kid to school, send them in a mask, keep them home. It's your guys' turn to do virtual then. I tried it, it did not work. My child needs to be in school. She needs to be able to breathe fresh air. Do you know how hard it was for me to drop my kid off at school and say, I'm sorry, but you have to put this over your face? She's crying, she can't breathe. I'm sorry, you have to do this. Otherwise you can't go to school, you can't learn. I don't know, it's just wrong. And I understand people have their fears, and if you want to keep living in fear, then live that way. But my child needs to thrive, and the only way she's going to do that is going to school, and it's not fair to cover her face and to make her live that way, make any of our children live that way. That's all I got to say.
Next individual, Tracy Scheidel.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Scheidel. I live in Sparta. I have 2 children in the Sparta School District. I've worked in healthcare for 20 years. I'm just asking for an option for masks. My children are not thriving, just like the last person said, when they're not in school. They need to be in school and learning. They deserve that. I pay my taxes for the Sparta School District to teach my kids. I'm not asking for everyone to agree with me. If you want to stay home or keep your kids home, that's fine. But I do believe that I should have to choose for my kids. They're my kids, and they deserve an education. Thank you.
Next individual, Kylie Dutton.
Hello, and thank you for letting me speak. I am taking a different approach, and not specifically about the masks, rather about the 2 individuals who voted against the masks, Heidi Presswood and James Rasmussen.
We won't allow comments like that, Ms. Dutton.
I apologize. The 2 people who voted against having a mask mandate.
Yeah. I'll allow you to speak, but we can't speak at directly at individuals.
Okay, well, your job is in education. The doctors, the CDC, the health department's jobs are medical. Your job, when you aren't the expert, is to seek out information from the experts. That is your job. I do not believe anyone up there, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, has a medical degree. Therefore, I'm not sure why you're not listening to the medical professionals. It is your job to do the best you can to keep the kids safe. It is your job to seek out help and guidance when you don't have the answer, and to make a decision based on your own beliefs is borderline negligence of your duties. I ask that both of you resign today.
All right, next individual, Bill Lasko.
You're talking about keeping the kids safe. Last summer, you said they had to wear masks on the buses for summer school, but not in the schools. So where are they going to keep their mask during the day? First graders, second graders. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of thought process in what you're doing, because they'll either stick them in their pocket or throw them away. We bus drivers have to drive a bus in traffic, and we ain't got time to watch some kids and tell them to put their mask on hundreds of times every day. You're asking for something to do, people to do with this mask mandate that you won't do yourselves. You need to think it through. Contact tracing, second day of school, girl gets on the bus. I asked her if her brother's coming. No, he's quarantined. Why is she on my bus? Why is she on my bus? She's still on my bus. That bus changes kids out 3 times a day. That's a lot of kids getting exposed to just one incident, one classroom that was quarantined with suspicion of exposure. Somebody's not thinking this through. You got to start thinking it through. You're hurting the kids. COVID doesn't stop at the threshold of the front door of the school. Thank you.
That concludes public comment. Next item, commendations presented to Officer Nelson.
Officer Nelson, where are you? Come on down. So this is the email that the police chief and I received last week. I've got a little longer version. There's a little shorter version on the screen. And it said, "Good evening, Superintendent Van Deuren and Police Chief Nottestad. I could not allow for the weekend to come to a close without reaching out to you to make you aware of a series of events that took place this past Friday. On Friday, I received a message from Officer Nelson regarding a possible concern related to one of my students that attends Clark School in Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and yep, that's Cleveland, Ohio. A student at one of your schools trusted the officer enough to share with him about a middle school student of mine that had threatened to harm herself. After receiving the information from your student, Mr. Nelson went into detective mode, using the information he had to determine which school district and which school the child in need attended. I must say his determination is to be recognized because he even used images from different photos to determine the student lived in Cleveland. Officer Nelson and I were able to connect, and I was able to identify the student and provide her the assistance that she needed. Last year was definitely one for the record books, but one of the many great pieces is that students each received a technology device, and they've learned how to communicate with others using different platforms And because of this, our students were able to communicate and we were able to intervene in a situation that could have ended very differently. Oftentimes, what we do on a daily basis goes unnoticed. So it's important for me to notify you of this great example and the hard work of Officer Nelson. Lastly, kudos to the administration's team at the student school, and a shout out to Ms. Cabinet, our new school counselor at Sparta High School, who was instrumental in this process. Based on this instance, they have created a culture that allows students to feel comfortable to reach out to an adult in a difficult situation. I wish each of you a wonderful and safe year ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item reports. Seclusions and Restraints Annual Report. Ms. Kulig.
Thank you very much. So each year annually, we present our seclusion and restraint data for the district. Before I get into our data, as a reminder, a seclusion is an involuntary confinement of a student moving from an area. So we're physically preventing a student from leaving. And a restraint is where we're physically preventing the student from leaving, going on a hands-on approach. As a reminder, these two are used as an absolute last resort and only when there's an imminent physical danger to themselves or others. Next slide, please. As you can see, this is our 2020-21 data as far as seclusion and restraints. And as you can see, we had very few and they were at Cataract this year. Next slide, or this past year, excuse me. Next slide, please. I don't know if it's going on mine. Oh, it's not going on mine. That's okay. Thank you. So as you can see, this is our district trends when it comes to the use of seclusion and restraint in our district. We have continued that downward trajectory with the use. And you'll notice that while there were times of virtual learning last year, we did have students with significant needs that were in our building while we were in red. So as a reminder, we did have students in our buildings throughout the school year. Next slide, please. Some things that our district continues to do when it's looking at behavioral needs of our students is we have de-escalation training that focuses on the prevention. So instead of having to look at a response, we're doing everything in our power to avoid that behavior from happening. If it does happen, we use problem-solving meetings where we're meeting as teams to determine the cause of the behavior and what interventions and preventions we can do to prevent that behavior from happening, as well as strategies when a student is escalated, how we can de-escalate that student. Additionally, we look at functional behavior assessments, and that a reminder is looking at the why of the behavior. So getting at that root cause. Positive behavior intervention plans. So we're really looking at the positive approach to addressing behaviors versus that consequence. Collaborative and proactive solution, which again, we're looking at the lagging skills and instruction versus the consequence. So we're looking at what is the student's struggle and what instruction do they need to be successfully behaviorally, just as we look at through the academic lens. We have embedded social emotional instruction and continue to work towards that at the universal level within all classrooms. Our additional mental health support, so from our school counselors, our school psychologists, and our mental health navigator, as well as all of our staff within the buildings, really looking at that trauma lens and the emotional mental health needs of our students. And then anytime there is an incident of seclusion and restraint, we have a debriefing meeting. So either myself or my special ed coordinator, we come together, meet with the team, talk about the entire situation and problem solve to prevent that from happening in the future. So again, we're really focusing on the preventative and the proactive measures versus the reactive. Next slide, please. Any questions?
Questions from the board for Ms. Kulig? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item B, SVLA enrollment data. Dr. Van Deuren.
So short and sweet, I did want to give you an update because what's going on is pretty exciting. I looked at our total enrollment numbers compared to some others. One of the things, if you'll recall, we're really making that shift with SVLA to having it be a permanent program. One of the things that the Sparta Area School District does very, very well is offering educational choice with our STEM school, our Montessori school, our project-based opportunities, and SVLA is the newest addition to that. So it really struck me when I learned of these other enrollment numbers and thought it would be worth sharing just how powerful our program is. And while we do use the Wisconsin e-network for some of our secondary classes, all of our elementary delivery is from teachers in the district. So that's pretty powerful. Next slide, please. So we have 119 total. By grade level, we have, and it's been capped. So we have one teacher that does K1-2. We have a teacher that does 3-4. We have 2 fifth grade teachers that do both in person and virtual. We have a teacher at 6, 7, 8, and we have 4, one in each core area, teachers at the high school that do SVLA also. So I just wanted to give you that quick update. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All right. Moving on. Next item is consent agenda. Any board member wishing to pull something out of here can do so at this time. I'll give you a minute or two to read over things. Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Sikorsky, a second from Mr. Lukasik to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item, discussion and possible action to approve a cash flow borrowing resolution. This came with no committee recommendation because 2 of the individuals that are on the committee could not vote on the item.
So now we are at the reading stage. This is the resolution authorizing taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory note for cash flow purposes in an amount not to exceed $2 million. Taxable line of credit. Whereas Sparta Area School District, Wisconsin, the district, may be in temporary need of funds in an amount not to exceed $2 million to meet the immediate expenses of operating and maintaining the public instruction in the district during the school year, current school year, that's the expenses. Whereas the school districts are authorized by the provisions of section 67.12 sub 8 sub A1 Wisconsin statutes to borrow money for such expenses. Whereas the city of Sparta, the city, has agreed to lend money to the district on a taxable line of credit basis to cover such expenses. Whereas in accordance with section 67.12 sub 8 sub A1 Wisconsin statutes, the total amount borrowed shall be for the purpose of meeting the immediate expenses of operating and maintaining the public instruction in the district during the current school year, and together with any other borrowings for such purposes during the current school year, shall not exceed 1/2 of the estimated receipts for the operation and maintenance of the district for the current school year as heretofore certified by the district clerk. Whereas the loan shall not extend beyond November 1st of the school year, Whereas the tax for the operation and maintenance of the schools of the district for the current school year heretofore has been voted to be collected on the next tax roll, and whereas, to the best of the knowledge, information, and belief of the school board, the district complies with the revenue limits set forth in section 121.91 and 121.92 Wisconsin statutes. Now therefore be it resolved by the school board of the district that 1. Authorization. The district is authorized to borrow funds from the city from time to time as needed in an amount not to exceed $2 million for the purpose of paying the immediate expenses of operating and maintaining the public instruction in the district pursuant to section 67.12 sub 8 sub A1 Wisconsin statutes. 2. Terms of the notes. To evidence such borrowing, the district president and district clerk are hereby authorized, empowered, and directed to make, execute, issue, sell, and deliver to the city, as set forth below, for and on behalf of the district, its taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory note, or notes collectively the note, payable to the city. The note shall be dated as of the date of its issuance, shall bear interest from its dated date until paid at a rate per annum equal to the prime rate, as defined below, minus 0.75%, but not to exceed 6.25, and shall mature on, and that date would get filled in at such time as we would exercise this note. Interest on the note shall be paid at maturity or redemption. The note is subject to optional redemption at the option of the district at any time. Prime rate means the rate of interest reported from time to time by the Wall Street Journal as the prime rate. Irrepealable tax, number 3, segregated fund, compliance with revenue limits. So long as the note or interest thereon remains unpaid, the aforesaid tax for operation and maintenance of the district, including the amount budgeted to pay interest on the note, shall be and continues irrepealable. The district shall segregate in a special fund tax monies and other available revenues received for operation and maintenance of the district sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the note as the same becomes due. Said special fund shall be used for the sole purpose of paying the principal of and interest on the note. If there shall be insufficient sums in said special fund to meet such payments, the district shall promptly pay the same when due from other monies available in or attributable to the current school year. This covenant specifically includes monies, i.e., that is, deferred tax and state aid payments attributable to the current school year, which are not received prior to the end of the current school year. The district complies with and covenants to continue to comply with the revenue limits set forth in sections 121.91 and 121.92 Wisconsin statutes. 4. Form, execution, and payment of master note. The master note to be delivered to the city shall be in substantially the form attached hereto as Exhibit A1, the master note. The master note and any disbursement note shall be executed on behalf of the district by the district president and the district clerk or other authorized officer under section 120.05 Wisconsin statutes to sign on their behalf, sealed with its official or corporate seal, if any, and delivered to the city. A facsimile signature of either of the officers may be imprinted on the master note in lieu of the manual signature of such officer, but unless the district has contracted with a fiscal agent under 67.10 sub 2 Wisconsin statutes, at least one of the signatures shall be manual. In the event that any of the officers whose signatures appear on the master note shall cease to be such officers before the delivery of the master note, or any disbursement note defined below, such signature shall nevertheless be valid and sufficient for the purposes to the same extent as if they remained in office until such delivery. The master note and any disbursement note shall be payable in lawful money of the United States of America by the district clerk or district treasurer. In accordance with section 120.05 sub 3 Wisconsin statutes, the school board hereby appoints any one of the officers to discharge the duties of the district clerk as acting clerk in connection with the issuance of the note in the event the district clerk is unable to discharge such duties due to disability or absence. 5. Certification and draw request. The appropriate officers and agents are hereby authorized and directed to present any certifications or other documents requested by the city at the times amounts are borrowed pursuant to this resolution. Each disbursement under the master note shall be evidenced by a disbursement note to be delivered to the city in substantially the form attached hereto as Exhibit B1, the disbursement note. 6. Summary of disbursements. The district hereby directs the city to keep a record of the amounts dispersed pursuant to this resolution and any disbursement notes on Exhibit C1. 7. Conflict resolution, severability, effective date. All prior resolutions, rules, or other actions of the school board or any parts thereof in conflict with the provisions hereof shall be, and the same are, hereby rescinded insofar as the same may so conflict. In the event that any one or more provisions hereof shall for any reason be held to be illegal or invalid, such illegality or invalidity shall not affect any provisions hereof. The foregoing shall take effect immediately upon adoption and approval in the manner provided by law. Adopted and recorded this 28th day of September 2021 by, and that would be the signature of the board president and the board clerk. Back to you, Mr. President.
Are there any questions from board members on what this is in pertaining to?
Not what it's pertaining to, but how often have we used that, say, in the last 5 years?
That would be my question as well.
We haven't.
Okay, thank you.
And has state aid ever been delayed where we might have had to use it?
Not yet.
Okay.
But it was used before. Excuse me? It's been quite a, but it has been used, but it was before my time.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there are no other questions, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve as presented, cash flow borrowing resolution.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Mr. Burns Gilbert, a second from Ms. Presswood to approve the cash flow borrowing resolution. Roll call.
Abstain.
Yes.
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0 with 2 abstentions. Next item up, discussion and possible action to approve selected Neola policies in the 5,000 series. This came from committee recommendation to approve 3-0. And I'm not even going to try to remember all the policies that were talked about, but.
Well, I wanted to clarify that we did remove one of them, that entrance age, 5112. And that's why if you go to the next slide, you'll see that it's been crossed out because we did make a change to the agenda at the committee level.
If there are no questions from board members, I'll take a recommendation or a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Mr. Lukasik, a second from Ms. Presswood to approve the selected Neola policies in the 5,000 series minus 5112. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item, discussion and possible action to approve the Department of Defense Education Activity Grant for Project Focus Forward for the amount of $750,000 through May 2026.
Thank you. I'm honored to be able to bring the board the news that the Sparta Area School District was awarded the Department of Defense Education Activity, otherwise known as DODEA, a 2021 grant called Project Focus Forward for $750,000. Next slide. Now mine. That's okay, I've got my slides. So as a reminder, DODEA is educating, engaging, and empowering military-connected students to succeed in a dynamic world with equity and accessibility to quality instruction and practices. Next slide. To give you a little timeline and reminder, we applied for the grant for $750,000 in April of 2020. It was brought and approved to the board prior to that application. In September of 2020, 21 out of the 80+ applicants were awarded, and we were not one of the awardees. DODEA gave us a call and said they would consider us for the following year. We were contacted on September 15th of this month and asked if we were still interested in the award. We were given 2 days to go through the award, change all the dates, relook at our goals to make sure the goals were aligned. And we had to submit that by 4 o'clock on September 17th. So I had a team and myself, Linda Layer and Sarah Schaff, got together and worked to make sure we had all the correct changes and revised and submitted by the 17th. And then we were contacted that we did receive the award on September 23rd. And upon approval tonight, it begins on Thursday, September 30th, and it runs through May of 30th of 2026. We do have that first year of planning, so we will have a team that will take the year to make sure we have all the right strategies and implementation strategies in place. Next slide. The goals will not change. The goals, goal number 1, the percentage of military connected students in grades 5 through 12 will increase their overall achievement in math and science. The bullet points are possible strategies we may use throughout the district, including embedding project-based learning opportunities in both math and science, offering more STEM-based projects in our WIN program, and blended learning strategies to increase personalized learning. Goal number 2, military connected students and families in grades pre-K through 12 will improve their social emotional learning and well-being. Some strategies we may implement include bringing responsive classroom training to enhance positive classroom management strategies, which is already currently strategies we use in the elementary, but we have many new staff members and have not attended that training in many years. We're looking at classroom materials and supplies for those strategies. We will work with the Student Services Department on how we can support our students and families and staff in their social emotional learning and well-being. Next slide. The money covers many different areas, including all the materials and resources, our professional development, any licensure we might choose to purchase, and of course our grant manager, which is mandated. So unless there's any questions, next slide. I offer you the opportunity to accept the award for $750,000 for a grant project Focus Forward from Thursday until May 30th, 2026. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from board members?
Another note, this will be the 4th one Sparta has received since 2012.
Josh?
Go ahead, Ms. Sikorsky.
So do these overlap or are they?
They have in the past.
Okay.
So the first one was 2012, 2015 and 2017 Project Bold Shift and Project Prep were overlapping, and Project Prep is ending at the end of this year. So we're still in Project Prep, but that ends this May. So they do overlap. Many of the goals are similar. If you recall, Project Prep has our science and math. So this one's really going to support that continuation with our science and math programs.
Thank you.
Any further questions from board members? If not, I will take a motion.
If there are no further questions, I move that we approve the acceptance of the DODEA grant starting September 30th and concludes May of 2026 in the amount of $750,000.
Second that.
We have a motion from Ms. Presswood, a second from Mr. Lukasik to approve the Dodea grant in the amount of $750,000. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Sikorsky, yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Next item, discussion and possible action regarding the process for future board action on Board Policy Article 904.
I have some things prepared if you would like.
Please.
I was asked for some different data points from various board members. So I do have some of that to share with you. The first is the positive case rate in the first weeks of school from last year and this year. If you recall, last year, it was about this time that we went virtual and didn't go back to in-person learning until January 19th. You can see that case rates are quite a bit higher this year. Obviously, we're learning how to manage it. Next slide, please. And you can see that as we move forward, week 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and this is the quarantine. This is the positive rates, and this is the quarantine rates. Thank you. And you'll see that week 2 is where we really spiked with the quarantines, and you'll see that they are leveling off on weeks 3 and 4. Next slide. Looked at some different data as far as our quarantines within the district. Took data points, and these fluctuate typically very little from day to day. They kind of move in trend lines. So we took the 7th of September, the 13th, the 22nd, and 27th. 2 points where masks were optional, 2 points where masks were required. And you can see that the quarantine rate's much higher with the masks optional, 8.67 to 1, 11.64 to 1, and that they dropped significantly once we required the mask. The other statistic is the total out, and clearly significantly fewer students missing school since we have implemented the mask requirement. Next slide, please. And then to look at apples to apples, I was asked about the TOMA data versus the Sparta data, because TOMA is doing the masks optional. And even though their case rate is lower, you see that the ratio of quarantines to positive is much lower for us. So what we're finding is that the masking is helping us significantly when it comes to reducing the number of quarantines. The other thing we have done is reached out to our liability carrier to get some clarification on the liability implications. There's been some discussion or suggestion about kind of doing our own thing with quarantining and contact tracing. So on the one hand, our insurance coverage is not jeopardized if we are inconsistent with our local health department's guidelines. However, our coverage could be negatively implicated if we do not follow ordinances and orders, and quarantine orders fall in that category. Next slide, please. School districts who choose not to follow the guidelines of local health departments are likely building a case against themselves from a liability perspective. It's important to follow the guidelines and best practices to the best of each school district's abilities. That's direct from CIC, the insurance court. School districts have to realize that local health departments and similar organizations are the experts in the field, and there is scientific data to support their decisions. So it was a pretty strongly worded letter from Community Insurance Corporation. There are still not clear interpretations of the legal immunities that have been recently afforded to school districts. So we know that from a liability, there's been, the Act 4 that gives school districts immunity, but there isn't enough data to draw the clear lines of where that obligation starts and ends from a purely legal perspective. So the insurance company, nor the attorneys, no one can give us super clear guidance right now. And they said that they're actually having these conversations with with all of their member school districts. If they're considering the practices that don't agree with the guidance, especially from the local health department, to determine why and if their reason outweighs that of the guidelines that are provided. And this is directly from the insurance company. Very seldom do school districts' reasons extend any further than simply the fact that some of our students and parents are unhappy about our decision. Now, you and I both know it goes a lot deeper than that, and there are different and deeper issues, but this is what our insurance company is telling us. So, next slide, please. So, in looking at other districts, we've compiled a general idea of, this is a recommendation, is that while we are in substantial or high transmission, all students over the age of 5 are required to wear face coverings indoors in all settings, regardless of vaccination status. With the caveat that once vaccines are available for children under 12, that's going to change this picture, right? Once we get to that moderate transmission, the recommendation is students in ages 5 through 8th grade are required to wear the face coverings, and then secondary students at the high school would have an option. And then low transmission, and that's where the optional goes in. So that's the recommendation that we're making at this time, and it would seem logical to revisit 904 when the transmission rate is down to moderate, which is under 50 cases per 100,000 for at least 7 days. Or the vaccinations are...
Quiet, please.
For at least 7 days, or the vaccinations are available locally for children under 12 years old.
Any questions from board members? Go ahead, Mr. Rasmussen.
It's quite obvious that these numbers are just ridiculous. And I have, if this is the way we want to play it, maybe we should just send everybody home.
You say that again. I couldn't hear you, James.
If this is the way we want to play it, then maybe we just send everybody home if we're that afraid of everything. We'll never get there. Okay, this is our 3rd year of dealing with this stuff. And things relax just a little bit, but then there's another variant that comes around, and it's going to be like the flu. And I'm sorry, I'm not a professional, but we got a lot of professionals over here that are parents that know what's best for their kids, and they should have a voice in what this goes on in here. It's just demoralizing looking at these numbers. I'm sorry.
Any other comments or questions? If not, otherwise I'll take a motion from a board member. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rasmussen.
I'm a little bit wound up here. By the way, I'm not going to resign. But
the crowd has to be quiet, please.
But anyways, the comments have been made time and again. What about grandma and grandpa? I'm 64 years old. I'm a grandpa. I got coronary heart disease. I'm right at the top of the list. Okay, of getting stuff and dying. I'm not afraid of it. I went out and I got my vaccination. Grandma and Grandpa and all the other elders have had 7 months to get it. If they haven't gotten it, they don't want to get it. These vaccinations have been available throughout the community for 5 months in ample quantities. So if we're going to sit here and look at these numbers on the county side of things, and these people don't want to get vaccinated, are we going to take it out on our kids? They have a right, okay, they have a right to happiness. And happiness is not running around with a mask on, breathing that stale air. Somebody coughs, I'm sorry, a 99-cent mask is going to stop this stuff. It's ridiculous.
Any other board members? If not, I'll take a motion.
I got something to say, Josh.
Go ahead, Mr. Lukasik.
You know, folks, it is not real easy sitting in a chair up here. You know, I've gotten calls on the phone both ways. I've even gotten calls saying that I skipped out on the last meeting when the vote was taken on purpose so I wouldn't have to vote. I was just getting off the operating table with a knee replacement. So that wasn't the case. So whoever, I won't mention names, that made those comments to me, you got now have a reason. Having said that, this board is responsible for 3,000 plus students and the staff that goes along with it.
Quiet out in the crowd, please.
This has not been an easy decision. In January of last year, Mr. Rasmussen and I had brought up the fact of trying to pull back based on the numbers that the health department had put out that we weren't going to meet. And so we would have stayed in red. And we use logic on how to go ahead and bring people back in for sports, so on and so forth. That's what I'm asking for patience. This is not something that is easy. We're not expert in the medical field. And I can agree with the folks, the parents that want to have the right to say, okay, you know, it should be optional. Well, the other half of folks, they say, hey, why should we stay at home? You know, if we don't think it's safe. The issue here is we have to come up with a plan, just like we did in January. And people want to rush to the fact of removing masks. What week are we in now with school? I'm talking about week. When did school start? How many weeks we've been? We're week 3?
4.
Week 4. We didn't have this last year, week 4. Why? Because people trusted us.
Quiet. Quiet out in the crowd, please, folks. Folks, if I can't have quiet out there, we will start removing individuals from the meeting. Okay?
So what I'm saying is this. You know, we need to make sure our buildings are safe, our students are safe, and we're doing the best we can with whatever decision individuals make on this vote, that's what they firmly believe. That's all I have to say.
I just have one quick comment to make. I mean, my stance on this has been pretty uniform throughout the entire process. Once the vaccine rolls out for the younger kids, and we give them that 4 to 5 week period there to get that first and second dose, at that point, the onus is on the families and the parents at that point, where if you wanted the protection, you had the option, you had the ability to do so. Today, the news was just released. Pfizer released their data to the CDC and the FDA. So hopefully within 2 to 3 weeks, that vaccine is going to roll out for the younger kids and we can be done by Thanksgiving. Quiet out in the crowd, please.
I've got a question, Josh.
Go ahead, Mr. Rasmussen.
First off, last year in the 4th week, we were completely closed, weren't we? Yeah. So, I mean, we
Get it
weren't
to
even in
week 3.
school. As far as, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't understand, I mean, the high school has all had the opportunity to be vaccinated. If that's your mindset, I guess I'm wondering why we wouldn't open up. Well, and I'll rephrase this, not mask optional, but mask strongly recommended at this time. Why wait? Why? Yeah, I mean, otherwise it's going to be Christmas. And if these numbers are bad yet, we'll be masked up.
My only concern with that approach is if the county doesn't change how they're going to do quarantines. You know, if you have a case at the high school, it's going to lead to 30 kids being quarantined. That's my concern with that level.
What would be the difference?
Well, the county still manages how the quarantines are done.
Why don't we have the parents do that now versus later?
I don't think we can take a mix and match approach to how this is done in terms of quarantines. I mean, I'm okay with going that approach once we get to the vaccination stage for the younger kids.
So I have a question. So I see people out here and people on this stage that I've seen out in public. I've seen at football games without wearing a mask. And they sit here and say that we need a mask on. Can somebody please explain that to me? I don't understand. I got called hypocrite and I'm trying to stand my ground here. It's not political. It's not this way or that way. Can somebody please explain that one point to me?
What it boils down to, plain and simple, it is extremely important for the educational benefit of having in person. If it's going to take a paper mask, according to all the medical fields, as saying that's how we go ahead and not prevent it, but make it safer, I would rather have our children and staff wear a mask so it's person to person and we don't have to shut the school down. It has been proven that the masks work to go ahead.
Hey, come on.
To go ahead and not eliminate it, but to reduce it. Those are the facts. Those are the stats that we just went through.
Right. I get that, Ed. I'm not ignoring that in any way, shape, or form. Do you have kids in the district right now as we speak? Not grandkids. Do you have kids in the schools right now?
No, but I had a grandson that came down with COVID. So don't, think that I don't have any money in the game.
No, I'm not saying you don't.
But what I'm saying is If you got a scale, kids are at home learning or they're in school
Which is
learning,
terrible.
it's my vote is it's in school being safe. That's how I figure it. That's what we're here for.
So how can you say that now? How can you say that now when just a few months ago we're for the optional masks? I don't understand that transition either. And we had
Excuse
we
me, but
voted along the way here.
My vote was not for optional masks. My vote was to mandate mask, not to make it optional, but to make it starting of school. And we were going to go ahead and see where the numbers come out several weeks later. That is in the notes. That's in the minutes.
I know.
Suggestion that you made that we have another meeting.
I know.
So-
And we did.
And we did.
Got a
Right.
question for the two guys that are on the city council. I've been in several of the city buildings, facilities, and you can't hardly find a mask. And I mean, these people go home to their kids,
Mm-hmm.
grandma and grandpa. And I guess so we got kids and we got adults. We're all humans. The kids have a higher immunity system and are able to fight this off a lot better. But this is a double standard here. I don't get it. How you can mandate one group of people, but everybody else.
Right. And these same kids are going into the Walmart without masks on, but the place where they spend the majority of their day, they have to wear a mask. I think we're causing confusion. And I firmly believe that we as parents should have this choice whether or not we mask up or don't mask up. And I agree with a lot of the comments out here. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you're fearful of what the world has, stay home, stay locked in your homes. Don't come out. Don't
Okay.
be a part of civilization.
Just for clarification, this part is not about revisiting 904. It is about the process for returning back from
Exactly.
904. So let's keep the discussion tied to that, please.
I guess with that being said, I would move that we we strongly recommend masks. It's in the schools.
That is not an item on the agenda.
Well, it's
It's regarding the process for future board action.
I guess that would be future board action being now.
I don't believe that motion follows with what is on the agenda. Do I have a motion regarding the process for future board action on board policy article 904
That's what's been
presented?
presented with the data.
Yes.
I'm more along the lines of, and if I may discuss just a little bit here. I think that the guidelines and the numbers, just like in January when we revisited it and we went ahead and went with legitimate numbers pertaining to the school district, not Monroe County in general. And we made the best decision we could based on what was happening in our school district. I'm not so sure that this red, orange, and everything, the numbers that are a little bit out of whack. They don't really say what is going on in our school district. I'm concerned about going ahead and adopting this without some further research and information on it. Because I think there's latitude here in order to come out of one color, just like we did in January. We did a thoughtful process in order to do that. And I don't know as if we're ready to do that because we're faced with the same kind of, skewed numbers, if you want to call it.
The only thing, if I could say something, Mr. Leiden,
Go for
Mr.
it.
Lukasik, because there's been motion now on the possibility of vaccinations and the availability, I think we could focus on that. The recommendation says or. And now, based on what we heard today, I think that's going to be a realistic. I mean, they're talking about 2 or 3 weeks. So I'd make a motion that we revisit policy 904, as Mr. Leiden suggested, 4 weeks after vaccinations are available locally for children under 12.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Ms. Sikorsky, a second from Mr. Lukasik to have this revisited on the availability of vaccinations 4 weeks after. We'll do a roll call vote.
Yes.
No. Yes.
No.
Yes. Motion carries 4-2. Next item, discussion and possible action to request for additional middle school cross-country coach due to numbers. I think this item is pretty self-explanatory.
It pretty much, yes, it is. There are 40 participants, and Mr. Sanders has requested an additional cross-country coach.
Mr. Leiden, if I could just make one comment. At
go
the
for it.
committee level, at that time, we had a conversation and we were a little unsure, but Mr. Sanders brought us the data back, and so, yeah.
We'll give him a few moments here to
Yeah.
figure out.
I make a motion, we approve additional middle school cross-country coach due to numbers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the additional middle school cross-country coach due to numbers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Discussion and possible action to approve grants and donations.
All right, the only one you have to approve tonight is the Mayo Foundation for Medical Education and Research to the backpack program for $1,000.
Make motion approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Lukasik, a second from Ms. Presswood to approve the donation from Mayo Foundation for Medical Education and Research. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you read the other
I
ones.
would sure like to recognize folks for our Pathways to Success t-shirts. They are being distributed to show some unity between the school district and our local businesses. Handy Shop Industries donated $50. Western Technical College donated $100. Off the Canvas donated $50. Matthews Archery donated $200, and the Boys and Girls Club of Sparta donated $50.
Thank you to all those donators.
Thank you.
Next item, meeting schedule and future agenda items.
Pretty self-explanatory. We're straight on the second and fourth Tuesday.
Any questions? Otherwise, move on to.
I've asked a couple times now for information on the pricing of this parking lot out here.
Of the pricing?
What the cost was to do this? Resurface this parking lot?
Yeah.
You told me you thought because it was less money.
All right. Mhm.
All right, next item, announcements and information.
Next slide, please. I would like to recognize the Sparta High School Academic Students of the Month. In art, we'd like to recognize Noelle Martinez. In business and marketing, Layden Bender. In English, Bradley Pass. In family and consumer science, Natalie Olson. In inclusion ed, Lucas McKee. In math, Brooklyn Schultz. In music, Sierra Settles. In Phi-Ed and health, Seth Kenyon. In science, Christopher Wells. In social studies, Brooke Johnson. In student services, Kayla Fabry. In tech ed and ag, Lily Bloyer. And in world languages, Christian Perez. And it's nice that our students are recognized at the high school and the middle school level. And the Kiwanis also recognizes a student of the month. And they get to appear at the luncheon and get to know, the Kiwanians get to know about the great things that they're doing and why the teachers nominated them. And it's just a really cool thing. So I wanted to acknowledge that we have started, we have our first students of the month at SHS. So thank you.
All right, next item, discussion and possible action to move to executive session regarding a pending lawsuit as per Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which is or is likely to become involved. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion from Mr. Lukasik, a second from Ms. Presswood. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.